Welcome to BookCast FM, bringing books to life, one cast at a time. Today we are taking a deep dive into a truly foundational work, Thinking in Systems, a primer, by the brilliant Donella H. Meadows. Our mission today is, well, to really extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from this incredible book, to help you understand how the world truly operates, cutting through the noise to get to the surprising facts and crucial insights. All right, so let's unpack this, because this isn't just a book about diagrams and flowcharts, is it?
Oh, not at all.
It feels like a profound new way of seeing everything from, say, your personal habits and relationships right up to the grand challenges of global climate change. It's about looking beyond those isolated events we see every day and truly understanding the underlying patterns that drive them.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how Meadows, who was a true pioneer in environmental systems modeling, she equips us with this lens, really, a lens to diagnose the real underlying causes in complex systems.
Right, not just the symptoms.
Precisely. She helps us foresee unintended consequences and, crucially, empowers us to find those elusive leverage points for meaningful, lasting change. It's about shifting from just reacting to events, which is what we mostly do, to thinking holistically about the structures that actually create them.
So let's peel back the layers here. Meadows isn't just giving us a dry dictionary definition of a system, is she? What's the fundamental shift in perspective she's trying to instill right from chapter 1?
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. Meadows defines a system not just as, a collection of parts, but as a set of things, people, cells, molecules, or whatever, interconnected in such a way that they produce their own pattern of behavior over time.
Okay, interconnected, producing their own pattern.
Yes, and the profound insight here is that the system's behavior isn't inherent in its individual elements. Think of an education system. It's not just the students, teachers, and classrooms.
Right, the physical things.
It's how they were interconnected by schedules, communication, shared goals, the curriculum, all that stuff. If you just change the elements, say you bring in new textbooks for different teachers, you might see minimal effect if those deeper interconnections or the system's underlying purpose, its goal, remain the same.
So the true magic, and often, the madness of a system isn't in its individual pieces, but in that, invisible web of interconnections that dictates its emergent, often surprising behavior.
Exactly. Emergent is the key word.
It's a profound shift in perspective, recognizing that the system is its structure, not just its parts. It truly is more than the sum of its parts, as Meadows says, and its behavior emerges dynamically over time, often driven by internal feedback.
And that leads us directly to the foundational engines of systems, as you might call them, stocks, flows, and feedback loops. These are the absolute building blocks.
Right. Meadows introduces these fundamental concepts in a very accessible way. I think the easiest way to visualize them is, she uses the bathtub analogy.
Exactly. The bathtub is perfect because it immediately helps us picture those core elements. The water in the tub.
Yeah.
That's your stocking element that accumulates over time, like water in a reservoir, or money in your bank account, or even, say, the amount of trust in a relationship.
Okay, so it's a quantity.
It's a quantity and accumulation.
Yeah.
Then the flows are the rates of change that affect that stock. The faucet is an inflow, adding water. The drain is an outflow, removing it.
Makes sense.
How quickly water goes in or out determines the stock level. A system's behavior depends entirely on how these flows affect its stocks over time, and crucially, often with significant delays between cause and effect.
Delays. We'll come back to those, I bet.
Definitely, they're huge.
And then the real drivers of all this change, what makes systems dynamic rather than static, are the feedback loops.
Precisely. And Meadows identifies two main types, which are fundamental. First, reinforcing loops, sometimes called positive loops. These amplify change, pushing the system further and further in one direction. Think of compound interest on investments, leading to rapid growth.
Or a snowball rolling downhill.
Exactly. Or, conversely, a spiraling collapse, like a rumor spreading or run on a bank. It just feeds on itself.
Okay.
Then there are balancing loops, or negative feedback loops. These resist change. They work to stabilize a system. The classic example is a thermostat regulating temperature. It senses deviation and corrects it.
So it tries to maintain a goal.
Yes, it works towards a target or goal. Like a predator-prey relationship often reaches a kind of dynamic equilibrium because of balancing loops. Recognizing which loops reinforcing or balancing dominate a system at any given time is absolutely critical for understanding and predicting its trends.
Okay, so once you grasp the basics of stocks and flows and these feedback loops, Meadows then invites us to explore what she calls her systems zoo.
Yeah, I love that term.
It's great, where she unveils how even seemingly simple arrangements can generate surprisingly complex and often counterintuitive behaviors.
Yes, it's a brilliant way to illustrate system dynamics without getting bogged down in, complex math right away. By modeling these basic configurations, she demonstrates how different setups of stocks, flows, and feedback loops generate vastly different patterns. For example, a very simple system, a single stock with only inflow, like that faucet filling a tub with no drain.
Exponential growth, right. It just
Yeah.
keeps going up faster and faster.
Exactly, pure exponential growth. But introduce a balancing feedback system, like our thermostat. It can oscillate wildly, overshoot, undershoot, before eventually stabilizing. Especially if there are delays built into the feedback mechanism. The correction comes too late.
So even what we might consider small or simple systems can exhibit genuinely baffling dynamics. You absolutely can't just assume a straightforward linear progression.
Absolutely not. It's why she famously states, all models are wrong, but some are useful. This chapter really highlights why systems can be so puzzling. Not necessarily because they are inherently massively complex in terms of parts, but because their behavior is often deeply counterintuitive to our linear sort of A causes B thinking.
We expect simple cause and effect.
Right. And many real-world systems, maybe most, combine multiple reinforcing and balancing loops, all interacting, leading to these complex behaviors like stability, explosive growth, sudden collapse, or even persistent oscillation that never seems to settle down.
It's amazing then how robust some systems actually are, despite all this potential for chaos. Chapter 3 really gets into why systems work so well sometimes, why they manage to adapt and maintain themselves.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting about the inherent properties of well-functioning systems. Meadows identifies 3 key ones. First, resilience. This is the capacity of a system to absorb disturbances, shocks, and still retain its basic function and structure.
Like an ecosystem bouncing back after a fire.
Exactly, or the human body recovering from illness. It can take a hit and keep going.
Yeah.
Second, self-organization. This is the incredible ability of a system to structure itself, learn, diversify, or even evolve without central command or external control. Imagine a bustling ant colony, or a flock of birds moving as one, or how a market economy ideally adapts to supply and demand.
No single leader telling everyone what to do.
Precisely. Incredible order and complex behaviors emerge from simple local rules and interactions. And finally, there's hierarchy.
Hierarchy, like layers.
Exactly, where the systems are nested within systems. Think of your own body. Individual cells form tissues. Tissues form organs. Organs form systems like the circulatory or nervous system, and they all work together as a whole human being.
Right.
A problem in one small part, like, say, your liver, doesn't usually crash your entire body instantly. That nesting, that structure within structure, is hierarchy at play. It simplifies complexity and prevents total collapse by localizing disturbances.
So things like redundancy, flexibility, and that kind of decentralized intelligence are absolutely key then for a system to last. Meadows notes, resilience is often invisible until it's gone. That's a truly chilling thought, isn't it?
It is, and it's a critical insight for how we manage things.
Yeah.
We should learn to value resilience, sometimes even over sheer efficiency, because tightly optimized, super efficient systems are often incredibly brittle. One small shock can break them.
Like just-in-time supply chains during a pandemic.
Exactly like that. A perfect example. And we should actively encourage self-organization by, frankly, avoiding micromanagement where possible. Many systems we rely on, from natural ecosystems to maybe even healthy communities, are self-sustaining precisely because they don't depend on constant top-down control. They find their own way, adapt.
This leads us naturally to Chapter 4, which is a big one for anyone trying to navigate our world. Why systems surprise us? If systems have these amazing properties like resilience and self-organization, why do they so often defy our logic and expectations, leading to all these unintended consequences?
Well, systems surprise us primarily because our minds or intuition aren't really wired to grasp their full complexity easily.
We think too simply.
We tend to think linearly, for one. But system behavior is emergent. It arises from the interactions. It's not obvious just by looking at the parts. You can't reliably predict outcomes by analyzing components in isolation. A major culprit she points to is the presence of delays between a cause and its effect.
Ah, back to delays.
Yes. For instance, overfishing isn't obviously harmful right away because fish stocks are large. They take time to deplete visibly.
You don't see the problem until it's maybe too late.
Exactly. By the time the damage becomes undeniable, maybe the breeding population has crashed, and it's incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to reverse easily.
So our ingrained expectation of immediate results, immediate feedback, is often profoundly wrong. And that leads to so much frustration and bad policy.
Exactly. We act. We don't see an immediate result. So we act more, or we give up, when really the effect is still propagating through the system.
Also, nonlinear relationships are huge.
Meaning small causes can have unexpectedly big effects, or sometimes vice versa. Huge efforts yield tiny results. Like doubling the fertilizer might not double your crop yield. It might kill the plant entirely. That's nonlinear. Or that one small, seemingly insignificant change in a team's workflow could dramatically boost or totally tank morale.
Right. You don't always get proportional responses.
Not at all. And finally, our own mental models are often incomplete or just plain flawed. We draw arbitrary boundaries around interconnected systems, ignoring crucial feedbacks. Meadows insightfully notes, systems fool us by presenting themselves as a series of events.
We see the headlines, the individual events.
Yeah, we see the stock market crash or the protest or the election result, but we often fail to see the underlying systemic structure, the pressures, the feedbacks, the delays that cause those events.
That raises an important question then. How can we improve our understanding and reduce these surprises, especially when our intuition often leads us astray?
It's about cultivating habits of mind, consciously looking for those delays and mapping out their potential impacts.
Yeah.
Actively assuming we're always missing something in our initial assessment of a situation.
Being humble, basically.
Huge humility, yes. Expanding the perceived system boundaries, asking what else is connected to this. Expecting nonlinearity instead of being surprised by it. And crucially, iteratively updating our mental models. Treating our understanding as a hypothesis to be constantly tested against reality and refined based on new observations on how the system actually behaves over time. We have to be willing to be wrong and learn.
Building on these surprising behaviors, Chapter 5 identifies common system traps, these recurring patterns of failure that lead to predictable bad outcomes over and over again, no matter how good our intentions are. Tell us about a few of these common traps.
And what Meadows masterfully exposes is that these traps aren't just, abstract academic theories. These are the invisible forces constantly derailing our best intentions in the real world. Whether we're battling climate change or simply trying to stick to a new diet, take policy resistance.
Okay, what's that?
That's where different actors in a system trying to achieve their goals, but their actions end up canceling each other out, leading to stalemate or worse outcomes for everyone. Think about anti-drug policies that focus only on supply reduction. They might increase drug prices.
Which makes dealing more profitable.
Exactly. Which then increases the incentive for dealers, potentially drawing more people into the market and undermining the original goal. Classic policy resistance. Or the tragedy of the commons.
The famous one, yeah. Overgrazing the shared field.
That classic scenario where shared, unregulated resources like clean air, fisheries, common grazing land are inevitably overexploited because each individual acts rationally in their own short-term self-interest, even though it leads to collective ruin. Another really common one she details is drift to low performance.
Drift to low performance.
Yeah, where standards like education quality or product safety or even a team's efficiency slowly, almost imperceptibly, erode over time if there isn't a strong balancing feedback loop anchored to an absolute standard rather than just past performance. People get used to slightly worse, then slightly worse again.
Until things are really bad, but nobody quite noticed it happening.
Precisely. These traps consistently produce undesirable outcomes, often regardless of the good intentions or hard work of the people caught within them.
Wow. That sounds like so many real-world problems we face. It feels like you could apply these traps to almost any major issue, from, environmental degradation to stagnant organizational performance or political gridlock.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating and ultimately hopeful here is that every trap, as Meadows shows, contains within it an opportunity for intervention. The way out isn't usually to blame the individuals involved.
Because they're often just responding rationally to the system's structure.
Exactly. The solution is to diagnose and then alter the underlying system structure, the rules, the goals, the feedbacks. For instance, with the tragedy of the commons, the solution isn't just about privatizing or regulating from the top down, though those could be parts of it. It's often about changing the underlying feedbacks that drive the behavior, maybe through effective communal governance, clear boundaries, shared information, or building trust and shared responsibility. As she writes so powerfully, the system, to a large extent, causes its own behavior.
This brings us to Chapter 6, which feels like really the strategic heart of the book, identifying these leverage points. These are the places where, if you push just right, you can create massive, potentially transformative, lasting change. But what exactly are these leverage points? Are they obvious?
Well, that's the tricky part. A leverage point is a place within a complex system where a small shift in one thing can produce big changes in everything. However, Meadows warns us quite clearly, and this is so important. Leverage points are not intuitive. Or if they are, we intuitively use them backward.
We push in the wrong places.
We tend to push on the obvious, often low leverage points, the symptoms, rather than seeking out the true points of deeper influence, which are often hidden or counterintuitive.
She actually ranks 12 of them, right? From least to most powerful. That seems incredibly useful. Give us the highlights of that crucial ranking.
Yes, it's an invaluable hierarchy for anyone wanting to make change. The least effective leverage points are typically changing the simple constants or parameters of a system, things like tax rates, subsidies, or standards. Adjusting the numbers.
Okay, tweaking things.
Yeah, tweaking the numbers. Often necessary, but rarely transformative on its own. More powerful are things like changing the structure of material stocks and flows, like building infrastructure, or the length of delays in feedback loops. Even more powerful is changing the strength of balancing feedback loops, like strengthening regulations that prevent pollution, or reinforcing feedback loops, like slowing down runaway growth.
Getting more structural now.
Exactly. Then we move up to things like changing information flows. Who has access to what information and how quickly? Think transparency, then changing the rules of the system, the incentives, punishments, constraints. Think constitutions, laws, property rights. This is quite powerful.
Okay, getting higher up the ladder.
Getting much higher. But the most transformative points, the highest leverage, are changing the goals of the system. What is the entire system for? For example, shifting the primary goal of a company from solely maximizing shareholder profit to maximizing well-being for all stakeholders, including employees, community, and environment. That changes everything.
A fundamental shift in purpose.
A fundamental shift. And even deeper, higher leverage still, is changing the mindset or paradigm out of which the system arises. This means changing the shared beliefs, the deep-seated assumptions and values that fundamentally shape how we define problems and even what we consider possible solutions, like shifting from a paradigm of human dominance over nature to one of partnership with nature. The most powerful leverage point of all, she suggests, and perhaps the most challenging, is the ability to transcend paradigms entirely, to realize that no paradigm is ultimate truth, to stay flexible, and to choose paradigms consciously based on purpose.
So just tweaking prices or adding a new regulation, while maybe sometimes helpful, is far, far less impactful than fundamentally questioning the underlying beliefs and the ultimate purpose that drive the whole system. That's a revelation right there.
Precisely. And it explains why so many efforts fail. Meadows encapsulates this with a really profound statement. The mindset or paradigm out of which the system arises is the source of the system.
The source?
Yes. We often waste immense effort, resources, political capital, tinkering at those shallow, low-leverage levels of intervention, adjusting parameters, fighting symptoms, instead of focusing on those deeper, more transformative areas like goals or mental models. It's why so many well-intentioned policy changes or reform efforts fail to produce lasting results. They don't change the underlying source code, if you will.
Meadows concludes her book in Chapter 7 by shifting from theory and analysis to, well, how to live wisely in this complex world full of systems. It sounds like systems thinking becomes more than just an analytical tool. It almost becomes a way of being, doesn't it? A kind of philosophical stance.
It absolutely does. This final chapter is really a beautiful philosophical and deeply ethical call to action. It's about how to dance with systems, as she puts it. It involves cultivating deep observation, really paying attention, constantly exposing your own mental models to scrutiny, acknowledging your biases, staying humble, profoundly humble, because you realize you'll never fully understand a complex system.
Letting go of the illusion of control.
Exactly. Celebrating complexity rather than fearing it or trying to eliminate it. Letting go of that need for total prediction and control. She encourages expanding our time horizons, thinking longer term about consequences, and critically integrating ethics and compassion into all our interactions and interventions within systems, recognizing our interconnectedness and shared fate.
That's a powerful message. She emphasizes that our full humanity is required, not just our analytical skills, our ability to calculate.
Yes. As Meadows concludes so beautifully, living successfully in a world of systems requires more of us than our ability to calculate. It requires our full humanity, our rationality, our intuition, our compassion, our morality, and our vision. It encourages you, the listener, to see yourself not just as a cog, but as a potential steward of the systems you inhabit, from your personal life and relationships to your workplace, your community, and ultimately to global issues like climate change and economic justice.
So wrapping this up then, what does all of this mean for us, the listeners? If we take one or two big things away from this deep dive into thinking in systems, what should they be?
Well, I think the core message is crystal clear. Seeing the world through a systems lens enables much more holistic, effective, and frankly, long-term thinking. It's a fundamental upgrade to our mental toolkit. To create lasting, meaningful change, we absolutely must learn to work on the underlying structures and feedback loops rather than just constantly reacting to or treating the symptoms.
Stop firefighting and start looking at the building's wiring, basically.
That's a great analogy, yes. And intervening in systems requires a profound sense of humility, immense patience, and constant adaptability. Those quick fixes we crave. They often ignore the complex, delayed, nonlinear behavior of the system and invariably lead to even bigger, perhaps less obvious long-term problems down the road. That frustration we often feel with intractable problems in our lives and society isn't usually a sign of individual failure or malice. It's often a symptom of the mismatch between our simple linear thinking and the system's complex dynamic nature.
And this applies everywhere, doesn't it? It's not just for CEOs or government policymakers or scientists in a lab.
Oh, absolutely not. It's for everyone. Whether it's understanding the daunting challenge of climate change or managing a small business or crafting local community policy or even just navigating your personal habits, your health, your relationships, your finances, all of these involve intricate feedback loops, stocks, flows, delays, and potential leverage points. Understanding these patterns helps us move beyond simple blame and endless frustration. It allows for more effective action, helps us anticipate and avoid those pervasive unintended consequences that Meadows so brilliantly illuminates, and maybe even fosters a bit more compassion for ourselves and others caught in difficult systemic dynamics. This raises a really important final question for everyone listening. If changing our shared mental models, our paradigms, is indeed the most powerful leverage point for creating a better future, what foundational belief about, say, progress or economic growth or individual success might we need to seriously question in our own lives or in our communities or as a society to truly achieve sustainable well-being for all rather than just more of the same?
That is a profound thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends. Thank you for that. We truly hope this exploration of Donella H. Meadows' Thinking in Systems, a primer, has given you a powerful shortcut to being well-informed and illuminated the surprising facts and crucial insights hidden in this absolutely essential book. To dive even deeper and, importantly, support the invaluable work and legacy of Donella H. Meadows, we strongly encourage you to purchase Thinking in Systems, a primer. You'll find a link to the book right there in the description of this deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive from BookCast FM, bringing books to life one cast at a time. We look forward to exploring more insights with you next time.